coming through your deck, but it can still help set up some really nice race situations. So I really liked it in those couple of matchups, tried it out a bit myself, and then hit the inevitable conclusion I knew I was going to hit, which is I hate this because it's so bad in every other matchup apart from those ones that I'm not talking about. So we'll see what Jarla's come up with here.
If it's something from Killing all day, Killing does have, I believe, one of the best win rates with Tempo Mage with a good sample size, 23 and 9. Which is actually pretty ludicrous in Grandmasters there, a 71.9% win rate with that deck. So, if he is going to do that, then it sounds like he's doing at least something right because he does know the deck in and out. But we are ready to get into game number 1. Thijs on the top on that Mage with Jarla on the Priest to kick things off.
Yeah, we're going to be playing the inverse of the matchup we were just talking about. Thijs has a much more standard-looking mage build. If anything, feels like his is teched a little bit in the other direction. He's gone a bit more anti-aggro because he's found room to fit a Firebrand in there, which, came out in the expansion as really like one of the big reasons why you'd play this deck, right? Like everyone was going crazy about that card. It seems so powerful, but it also then became one of the first cards to be cut. And only really comes back in now if you're expecting matchups like Stealth Rogue, like Face Hunter, like Zoo, for example.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those cards that the better people got with Mage, the less there was a need for a card like Firebrand, which is a very simple, efficient removal tool. The idea being that, well, if you can swap that for something else and then just don't die to the aggro decks as often because you may be utilizing resources better or knowing how much damage you can take with the ability to respond, then yeah, I do like it overall. Thijs here.
Sounds so simple when you put it like that, Raven. Just don't die. Of course. Why hadn't I thought of that earlier?
you know exactly what that means. I was wondering whether Thijs was actually just going to bank the Cram Session, but he does have the second lab partner into Cram Session next turn with this 1-2, quite unlikely to die.
Yeah, I do like that. Protect this 1-2. The second lab partner draw seemed encouraging just to play a minion out on curve, but it's technically off curve, and the curve kind of demands that you pair them together with that Cram Session, find fuel for that Shemvala Sorcerer's Apprentice combo that you also have in hand. So just taking the ping turn here, it shuts down Coin Apotheosis. It means you lose less tempo to like Coin Mind Flayer even. I think that's pretty crucial in the matchup because, like I said, Mage can win early and they can go late, and you can certainly compete in the late game with Priest. But if you fall behind on board early, that's likely where it goes wrong in the matchup a lot of the time.
We're not going to see Jarla just fish for a spell. I was staring just at that Coin Mind Flayer Kaj. I think would have been a really good use and a good setup, not only with Raised Dead support, but also just that renew, even if it gets kind of like poked down. The only fear factor, of course, is Thijs is actually running a Devolving Missiles in his list. So if Devolving Missiles was the response of the Kaj, then that would have not only kind of blew the Kaj and the Raised Dead and the Coin out of the water there for him. So I do understand the slight fear there.
And I think the most important thing that you mentioned there might be the Coin. I think even if he doesn't get punished and he actually gets to stick the Kaj, it still messes with his curve quite a lot, right? If he went Coin 3 on 2, he didn't really have a turn 3 play or a turn 4 play. So his curve seems to dictate more playing 3 on 3 and then coining into his 5s from that point, which is more what I'd expect to see here from Jarla.
That is reasonable. You do have a minion to heal and renew and get value from, potentially on that play, or just raise dead afterwards, to be able to replay it if it does get cleaned off. But I definitely agree. In a perfect world, you would like to just keep hold of it and smooth out the overall curve. Now, Thijs does have the double Sorcerer's Apprentice and a Magic Trick and kind of an Arcane Missiles, if you count this the Spellwing for now. It's starting to piece together a pretty solid potential few turns here.
Oh. The eyes light up of Tempo Mage players around the world. 2 spell damage minions in play, Raz available next turn, but it's going to be so hard to protect them here.
It is. It looks like a fairly just solid Firebrand turn, though. Just kill off the 3-3, then at worst, Jarla gets a lab partner, kills off the 1-1. But then you have a spider tank and a lab partner still on the board after that. Like, it seems pretty solid to me.
Turn it up. It says explode!
Mirror Image, cheap spell that can pair with the Shenvala combo that's still kind of setting up in Thijs' hand, and can also protect the Raz on coming turns if Raz is going to come down and stick 1 or 2 turns unprotected. So exactly Cleric of Scales Kaj in the Raise Dead now for Jarla if he wants to cash out on those 2 immediately. He does have spell damage in play right now, which does create that little bit of anti-synergy, but not too big of a deal. Yeah, looks like he's just going to take the 4.
It's interesting, right?
Himself, though.
Yeah, because I don't think the turn is super straightforward. Because I definitely don't think he has to just play one of the 2 minions he's got here. He could still just coin out Sandtooth, trade the 1/1. But it depends how much he wants to, if he thinks he can outlast this, or whether he wants to try and actually steal the board super early and try and secure it. Because he still does have Pyro, he does have Soul Mirror, he's got heal, so he's got plenty of opportunities to snap a board back a little bit later.
Yeah, I do like just replaying the 2 minions, though. Like, the problem with the coin Sandtooth line is the trade, right? Like, how much does 1 healing on your lab partner matter when it happens 50% of the time there? And I don't think coining a 5/5 just straight up without any kind of beneficial effect is a particularly strong play there. So I do like this, because obviously he will get a Firebrand back with the Spell Burst if he gets to do it on his own terms, which kind of forces Thijs to deal with the situation right now.
And you do the God Mode Apotheosis Firebrand, which is pretty nice as well.
Exactly.
Thijs just been a little bit starved of cards. I wouldn't be surprised to see him start with a Spellwing into the 1 Thief, potentially, just to see what's looking good for next turn. Oh, is he just going to play Raz?
True mastery takes dedication.
Okay, I guess he doesn't have to trade if he does this.
Pretty good here, right? Honestly.
It is. It's just that the Kaj gets 3 damage and then a spell burst effect afterwards from the fire. It just looks like he looks ahead on board, but if you actually just add up all the damage Jarla can almost certainly do this turn, it doesn't actually look as powerful. That's why I was wondering whether he was going to fish and maybe try and set up for a nearer future Shenvala turn. We could actually just, do you ever Apotheosis and just renew it and then just go from there? Does that unlock anything? Probably not.
Yeah, it's just awkward with the Raz breakpoint, right? That would be 5 damage. Even with the renew afterwards, it's still going to end up leaving the Raz up a lot of the time.
Does it ever work with
Pyro?
Trade Pyro Apotheosis? Then you get the spell burst and the 1 effect?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to go about this turn, honestly. Do this and then coin Pyro renew.
Okay.
Yeah, this looks like it.
I think as long as that Raz dies and you are not completely behind on board, it's going to be a good turn from Jarla.
Right. Penance, very, very useful card to have against Tempo Mage. There's a lot of must-kill targets in the deck that, are relatively small. Spell damage, minion, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Shenvala, etc. And Priest can't always afford to use a premium removal on removing one of those situations. So having extra Penance available just to mop up situations is quite often very nice.
It is. Honestly, I was looking at Embalm in there. I thought that would have been very powerful, whether he gets it off with the Spell Burst effect on the Firebrand or not. But it does mean he has a 5 cost into Embalm in next turn. Of course, he has 5 cost into 1 mana spell if he wants with Spellkin anyway. But I just think with the minions he has on board, unless this is all cleared up this turn, which I think is a reasonable stretch, then I think Embalming could actually be really powerful.
These spells are juicy, Raven. Deep Freeze, ton of value. Flame Strike is an actual real premium removal. And yes, Potion of Illusion. This can be a very value and resource-based matchup. And if you look at his hand right now, 2 Sorcerer's Apprentices, a Shenvala, an Astromancer currently on board, a 1 Thief currently on board. That's a lot of potion value. And I normally scream at players for taking a potion in a situation like this, where oh, look at all the minions I have on board. I can potion them next turn. That's insane. well, okay, then your board gets removed and you lose the game because you have a card that does nothing in your hand. But that's not the case here. Like, Thijs can potion his board, or he could potion the minions he has in his hand if that goes wrong. So he kind of has a contingency plan either way. So I don't hate the pick.
Yeah, the Spellwing, I think, weirdly enough, is like the kicker in that hand to make it worth, right? Because he's going to get more Arcane Missiles out of that as well. Like, of course, more Sorcerer's Apprentice and Shinval is really good, but if this board does get wiped this turn, at least he has spell generation, right? Because otherwise, it's like, okay, I have 4 Sorcerer's Apprentice, 2 Shinvala, and no spells left.
That just sounds like one evocation away from a good time, Raven. That's all I'm hearing.
I mean, if you're going to draw it, I won't argue with you.
Yeah.
Let's open up a bit of an odd turn here from Jarla. Looks like he's going to be able to get used from that Penance. Which I think was always going to be the case. I think you were completely right pointing out that there are so many like spot removal targets against Mage. It's why I love Sword and Board in Warrior builds when I'm against Mage. It's great. 1 mana. You're dead. Next.
Yo. Alright. I'll be honest, initial impressions, I have no idea how you play this hand. I'm gonna sit here and work it out. Be right back.
Me neither, and because Sottle left first, I have to talk.
Yep, outplayed. Strictly outplayed.
Okay. He's going halfway here, that's fine. So what I was staring at first was whether it's like an odd like Spellwing ping turn or something like that, because he does actually need spells to cast this turn, but maybe he just does this and waits and just goes with a much more steady set of spells next turn. He could even potentially trade and play the Spellwing again, just so we can have some Arcane Missiles in that pool.
Yeah, hand does need spells. He did just make another 1 Thief, which is really nice.
Yeah. That's what I mean, right? You could like Arcane Missile. You could play an Apprentice and Arcane Missiles 1 Thief and then go basically next turn.
Ooh.
Oh, we've got to get him a Hearthstone.
Ooh. There's no way you can Soul Mirror this board and expect to win the game, right? It's way too low value, I think.
What?
This is a tough choice. Because initially I was like,
Apprentice lives though. Oh, sorry. Carry on.
This is a tough choice because at first I was like, oh, you steal the Prime, sick. That's what you want. But that does lead into the problem where if he doesn't steal the Taunt, then that Apprentice is just sat there. What if this is just a Soul Mirror?
It can't be. It just can't be. Soul Mirror is your trump card. It's your gotcha card. It's your game ender. It's what deals with the final resources or just like creates a board state where you actually swing the board. Although I guess Raz is gone. That's often one of the traps that the Mage can fall into, where you're actually able to Soul Mirror a Raz board that just clears their board right back with the spell damage.
I think it was worth things like... Even Jarla doesn't know!
I just don't know, Raven. This game's been so hard. This was my instinct. Like, this is what I wanted to do at the start of the turn, but then I don't know if I just got suckered into the idea of leaving the Apprentice up was too dangerous. Now it is. Now it's way too dangerous.
You should have started this turn 10 minutes ago, mate.
But how?
I don't know, but he's the pro, Sol.
How many... So Lab Partner can come down, the Mirror Image token can come down, Spellwing can come down, then you can play it, but then you don't have room for extra apprentices, so maybe you just commit to the extra apprentices early? Because that's the thing, like, conventional wisdom says you play the evocation because it's free anyway, then you decide whether you need more apprentices on the board to get value out of the evocation, but he's already running out of board space.
Yeah, are you trying to apply a conventional wisdom to this turn, Sol?
Yes! Yes,
Mistake
I am.
number 1! Mistake number 1!
Maybe this is just the hand dump, and then he still just has double apprentice evocation and the other stuff in hand next turn? Yeah, I like this, right? You just throw everything else away, and then do it next turn.
I would want to see the Mirror Image played then. I think now's the time to just play it, right? Didn't hit how he wanted to there. Oh!
Ooh! Okay, yeah, seems fine. Seems fine.
Play the Mirror Image?
Yeah. Incanter's Flow when his hand is Sorcerer's Apprentice. Sorcerer's Apprentice probably completely irrelevant, but he will cast it anyway since he had the mana to do so.
Oh, I don't know. It could make that Conjurers free.
You think this is yours?
Yeah, I was gonna say when all else fails, Morozon. It's just like, okay, here we go.
And this is the danger, and he got the good order immediately! Oh no! The swing turn is so monstrous because of the spell damage ordering.
I love this turn so much, and this is not... I think this is the turn anyway, but it is exactly what my response would have been to that turn was, oh, he did a lot of crazy stuff. I'm not really sure what the best way to... Murazon. It's like, just throw it down. You've done good stuff. I will also do a good stuff and add an 8/8.
A single good stuff.
Yeah, one good stuff. What were we saying yesterday? One education?
One education,
and one good stuff?
Yeah.
I will freeze the blood in your veins.
Yeah, Thijs. I don't want to say taking it slow in a bad way because he did a good turn there with the Blizzard, but
Yeah.
just having to hold off that little bit longer for this big evocation turn.
Yeah. He is losing board spectacularly, though. I'm not so sure about the Blizzard myself. Like, I think maybe that should have just been immediately gone for the evocation swing turn. Because the theory behind the Blizzard there is that you get to do it into a smaller board the next turn, right? And my response to that is, do you? Because now he's just doing the same thing, but the board state, if anything, is just worse than it was last turn.
Yeah. It's the problem of the mirror turn on a stick, isn't it, with the 8/8? It's causing that bit of an issue there. And it's not like Jarla's in any trouble for hand size right now.
Go. Are you committed? I feel like you're committed. He's not committed.
I have studied.
Allies is good. He's very low on resources right now. He does have Stuart in his hand, so there's a good chance he can get that to chain together.
I was going to say, funnily enough, in playing the Mana Giant first, might have been a bit of a worry there if he hadn't had this second elemental.
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, it still is a problem.
It doesn't have
like
a
it obviously
one, right?
is still correct ordering because you want that extra space in your hand for the evocation, but
okay, just gonna wait till later, I suppose. I guess with his hand, there's no. There kind of is a rush. Honestly,
okay.
A pretty nutty turn, and I'm sure there are 1,000 different ways to go about that. But overall, pretty solid. It's really put Jarla in a tough spot. He does just have his Murazon if he really wants, or maybe more reasonably Soul Mirror.
Yeah, that's like the issue with this Murazond is that a lot of the good things that happened there came off the Shenvala, which is not a effect he's going to mimic with his own Murazond. Soul Mirror is a little bit icky as well, to be perfectly honest, because he has board space issues. There's a 4/8, there's a 4 attack taunt, meaning that he can't really clear the spaces that he would want to be able to get the Soul Mirror all the way through to the right-hand side.
Is he just going to Murazon?
He is Murazonding, dumping the cards first to make room.
This could go very right or very wrong, honestly.
He's already roping.
There's a Conjurers as well, right?
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, okay. That went very right.
What?
That was a very right option.
Oh, no!
Hello? Oh my.
Way too late for this turn, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Broken record Sottel's going to get on his high horse again, but come on. You've got to start turns like this before the rope appears.
Oh!
Looks like he still managed to get just about everything done that he would have wanted to do there, but you know, whether or not it was the optimal decisions, I can't tell you.
Yeah. pretty rough, honestly. Like even the 6-8 just didn't get its effect off because the board was full. I'm not saying that was particularly Jarla's fault, but just unfortunate for him as two extra attacks there would have been pretty huge.
Well, I mean, I'm not even going to class that as unfortunate because the only reason he has that 6-8 to begin with is that the Conjurer's Calling hit his own 8-8 out of every target on the board.
Oh!
What?
I'm just making noises.
It's just a bunch of 1-1s though, right? Yeah, it's just a bunch of 1-1s.
Still very funny though. It's a bunch of very funny 1-1s.
Yeah, I guess one of them is a Shambhala.
Subtle. They're not the smartest 1-1s, they're the funniest ones.
Yeah, one of them is a Shambhala, to be absolutely fair. Well,
ooh. Should he have actually... I guess he can double trade ping his own face, right?
He's going to double trade ping his own face, yeah.
Okay.
Works against me.
Well, this is a suitably nonsense game of Hearthstone to kick us off for the day, isn't it, Raven?
Yeah, it's a great start, yeah. Almost like a bleed effect from APAC, right? First game of the day. It's like, we'll get into the slow, grindy, I guess, less messy games later on.
Oh my gosh, they're elementals. They're all elementals, of course they are. Never mind, it was the nuts. These 1-1s. These 1-1s are the greatest thing.
Oh.
Lucenbark actually pretty awkward here because Thijs has so many board space considerations right now. He has Zaraku Shenvala on board, which I know, first world problems. He also has 1 million damage on board, so let's not worry too much about his board space concerns. But the fact he has a dormant minion just taking up a spot on board for the rest of the game could actually be a little bit awkward at this point.
So I have Okay. I was interested as to whether he was actually going to inner fire one of the minions here, whether it's the Zaraku or the Shambhala.
Yeah.
Before he soul mirrors, but I actually think at that point it's probably the Shambhala because the Zaraku, I think like Thijs wants to kill Jarla more than Jarla needs to kill Thijs, which means the Zaraku actually living for Jarla is a benefit versus it dead, I think.
I think it might actually be close because Jarla's mimicked basically all of Thijs' card draw this game. So they're actually like both running out of value at a similar rate.
Yeah. He does have Fireball though to deal with his Zaraku next turn.
Yeah. Thijs is in a bit of trouble here with the side quest because he doesn't necessarily have the hand size right now. He has to play a non-elemental, then an elemental, just to get the 3 spells this turn. And then he can dump some more cards. Yeah, should be fine. Okay.
I was going to say, he could have even started off with like trade Conjurer's Corn on the Zaraku, right? Because it's nearly dead anyway.
Yeah, sure.
I think that would have been an okay start. He's gone about it this way, which I also think is fine. Cool. Okay.
I thought that was Octosari just for a split second. As soon as a Death Rattle 8-8 comes out, I'm just like, right, Octosari, kill it, fatigue gamers, here we go.
He could all... Yeah, I was going to say, does he ever just evolve in and go now?
Nice. That worked out very well.
Pretty solid turn, honestly, from Thijs.
Yep, Ray will kill. First one does 1, second one does 3 with the frog. Push the damage, Soul Mirror used, giant board once again, threatening lethal. This ticks all the boxes from Thijs, very nicely executed turn.
As you said, giant board then, a 1-mana 1/1 elemental hit the board. I was like, just funny timing. You are right, though.
It's a little bit tilted to the right in terms of power level, but it's fine.
It's just a curve, literally.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
It's like the evolution of man, but in minion form.
Wait, Tomb Warden is like the ascended final form of man?
I think so, because he can clone himself. And the thing is, look, we start off in the elementals. We crawl out of the water into a frog, and then we turn into a dragon, apparently.
You should have stopped it. He can clone himself. That was by far the best thing he said.
I wonder.
You know me, Sol. Can't finish on the best thing.
Mm.
Here, though, the Fireball is still there to deal with the Zeraku, but you are right. The actual just board presence right now is much more pressing. Wave of Apathy is going to be able to buy Jarla some time, though, and this steal could be huge, or it could be tiny.
Or it could be hilarious.
Is that the next one? Would you rather an Acolyte steal be huge or hilarious?
I mean, as a commentator, easy answer.
A charming composition.
Apexis Blast. Do we need to be concerned about face damage at this point? Probably not, right? Efficient removal is probably more important.
Is Apexis... I guess not, yeah. Arcane Breath ping is better, right?
Yeah.
Mana usage. Oh, actually, potentially just Arcane Breath with the frog.
It's true. Yeah. Works out fine.
Works against me.
Suspect the frog's usefulness might be done here, so it's time to sack that and replace it with a 6/6. Yep, seems good to me.
Reasonable, doesn't it? Yeah.
Thijs holding on to resources here just in case this board can get dealt with by some miracle from Jarla. And then he actually has a refill with that 1-mana Shimvala that he has in hand, potentially with the magic trick.
Yeah, and also, even if he doesn't ever think he needs it for that, he doesn't really know what he wants from Magic Trick right now, right? So there's nothing that like wins him the game right now. There's nothing he needs to defend with, so why not keep hold of it? I like it. Now, though, nothing really looking too good for Jarla. It does have the Aeon Reaver with a Conjurer's Calling as a stretch, but that kills one threat out of many.
Yeah. I think even like Aeon Reaver, Conjurer's Calling, double Sunwalker or something is still dead on board at this point, or very close to.
He just needed about 5 more Wave of Apathies, didn't he?
That certainly would have helped, yeah.
My blood be born again.
Doesn't do too much here.
Able.
Wait a minute.
Dead on board. Takes 2, 21 left.
Yep.
Dunzo.
The damage from the Abomination actually just causing it to be that little bit easier there for Thijs. Takes the victory in game number 1. And what a game number 1 it was, Sol. That was definitely not the most standard game I've ever cast.
I feel like I've already been here like 3 hours. What's going on? That was exhausting. I mean, yeah, Tempo Mage be like that sometimes, right? It was a very, very explosive game. When you get 3 Potion of Illusion cast, 2 of them from a Prime, it's probably going to get a little bit messy. It just meant that Thijs had so many resources for so long. And as I said, you can generally, no matter what the circumstance, push Priest to the late game as Tempo Mage. And then when you get there, it's just a matter of whether you can keep the threats going. Because it's not just value that you need to generate, it's value that's also quite fast on tempo, right? So you can keep having turns that are ahead on board, ahead on board, ahead on board, every single turn after turn for 6, 7, 8 turns straight in the late game, which is exactly what Thijs was able to do with Solarian Prime, with Potion of Illusion, with the double Sorcerer's Apprentice Evocation turn. So it's just kind of a quintessential how Mage beats Priest kind of game, really.
Right. Yeah, and even though it may not feel like it, that was just game number 1 between Thijs and Jarla. Plenty more games where that came from, but for now we're going to go to a break while we self power game number 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We are ready to dive into game number 2 of Thijs versus Jarla. And if game number 1 was anything to go by, we're in for a bit of a crazy ride, Sol, because that was just a nutty first game. And honestly, a pretty challenging first game for these players to kick off with.
It was, yeah, lots of difficult decisions. Obviously, both players, so many cards in hand at all times. Thijs in particular, so many cards and so much mana cheat, meaning he could play so many of his handful of cards every single turn and just replace them with new copies, with Cyclone, with Evocation. He had so many ways to navigate through that, but I largely like the way that he approached it. I think maybe if we hadn't seen the Elemental Allies and the Potion of Illusion come off the first Prime, he might have gotten a little bit of trouble with his minimal Cyclone value that he chose to go through, but I think that's unlikely. I think overall, with the amount of value that he had, his lines made total sense. Big fan of how he played the game.
Yeah, and I do believe Thijs now is going to be going into his rogue deck, which, just taking a quick look, is the secret rogue, I guess, with the double vendettas, which actually are becoming a little bit less and less common. So him going to a bit more of an more old school list, but still up against the priest, I think, from Jarla, means that this could just be another one of those matchups, Saul, that can get a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I noticed that Casey as well has the Vendetta back in his rogue again for this week. So again, it seems something that practice group has settled on. But that practice group, RDU, Bunny Hopper, Thijs, Casey, does have some discrepancies on lineups this week, which I think is something we can and should get into more. We've maybe done a disservice on commentary this year, where we haven't really talked about players prepping for particular players enough, and I think that's potentially where some of these discrepancies between practice groups do come in, where you can't necessarily all bring the same lineup even if you're practicing together, right? Because you're going to be playing different matchups as you develop reads on what your opponents for that week are going to be playing.
And this is a good point, right? Because look at this. Like, honestly, if I was going into knowing I was going into a match against Jarla as one of my opponents, I wouldn't expect an aggro lineup from him. So I would plan for that, right? Like, I wouldn't overly tech with aggro in mind, and I think he would be playing generally just slower, more kind of slow value-based decks, as he has been wont to do. Forever, most of the time. So that is just one of those extra nods, and you are completely right that I think going into these weeks, these players do have a strong mindset based on exactly who they're facing and what they should expect from that.
The list overall from Thijs, outside of those vendettas that Raven mentioned, it's a bit one-of-y. There's a 1 prep, 1 Dragon's Horde, 1 ambush, which, me, I'd like to see some of that consolidated into 2 ofs of the good cards, but it seems pretty solid, secret, miracle, rogue, whatever we're calling it these days, outside of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange one, isn't it? Because for me, I'm less fussy about one-ofs than you, but the cards that are chosen, I kind of agree on, because like prep, you're not planning on prepping tons of stuff out or making one big crazy turn with prep. It's just sometimes there's some good targets, but there isn't tons of them. You're just running like Secret Passage, which often isn't that much of a prep target, but Prep Secret is the main thing you want to do, and like how many times you're expecting to do that in a game. So yeah, I think I like these picks overall for one-ofs.
I do think prep got devalued a little bit by the Secret Passage nerf as well. If you played a lot of games with this deck, you've probably experienced the point where your second prep quite often gets stuck in your hand. Like, it's very often like the last card that you play, and you're holding it as like a combo activator unless you top deck, in case you top deck Miscreant or Eviscerate or whatever else is in your deck. But specifically, Secret Passage used to draw you 5 cards, so there was a good chance that the 5 cards you drew were combined too expensive for you to play out on a single turn, which made drawing prep as one of those cards more valuable. Now you only draw 4, so it's more likely that you can actually dump the whole hand anyway, even without having access to a prep.
Not to not carry on your point there, Saul, but what do you even pick for those options? Like, all 3 of them had great potential there for Thijs, I think.
Yeah.
I'd go for the Omu. I was just looking at the Varisa, though.
You used to love
Just
that card,
because.
right? Weren't you just jamming that at some point in Hunter?
Yeah, in Hunter,
Yeah.
damn right. It was great. I think it's a very cool card as well. I think like the swing of the weapon then creates the effect is kind of interesting to use as well. Yeah, I think Omu just all round the most the card that's consistently going to get its effect off well, I think, for Thijs here.
Yeah, with coin still in hand, right? You've picked a 0 mana 5/4 worst case scenario a lot of the times, right? Which seems pretty solid. No ambush. Jarla just going through the motions here, picking apart rogue secrets is very annoying because now this is kind of, it almost feels like the worst way to do it, and I mean that like in terms of feeling, not technical play. It just feels bad to play your first minion, know it's not ambush, and then work out, okay, do I want to keep committing stuff into plagiarize to find out whether it's dirty tricks or not? You know, like it feels bad at that point.
Really tough choice from these selections as well. Looks like Jarla is going to go for the Shadow Word Pain and get the news that it is dirty tricks, but I think I was so close to like looking at Grave Rune quite heavily there, just because I think the card, just for a single card, can potentially be very powerful versus Rogue that can struggle to deal with it outside of a Blackjack Stunner. But just looking at Jarla's hand, there aren't any immediate great targets for that Grave Rune, so
Yeah.
I do understand him just veering away from it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, you saying outside of a Blackjack Stunner is a bit optimistic, right? Because Blackjack Stunner is a lot better answer than most decks have to Grave Rune. And it's not like we just play Grave Rune in our Hearthstone decks, and most decks can't deal with it. So when you add to the equation that, Thijs has a 2 of in his deck that can really punish you very hard for playing Grave Rune, I think it would have been a sketchy choice there.
From nothing to power.
Well, 2 of these cards are in your deck.
Yeah, and I like the one that isn't.
Wait, do you actually?
Generally not, no, because you're going to go for Quest Adventure at some point. But I do think there are some matchups that it's okay if you're really trying to push some damage.
Yeah.
But not in this particular one. Just going to go for the Goblin Lackey as well on the Miscreant, just to clear up as much of the board as possible. You'd have an option to just play the one Thief because it was active and comboed, but they're choosing to clear some of the board, which I do like, and now prepping out the ambushes means Jarla's back in the tank, considering what secret this could be and how to play around it once again.
Yeah, he has resumed being annoyed.
He does have the I guess the easier one to work out, right? Because he's always going to try and play a minion first if he can. He does, and then boom, he gets to know it's ambush.
And this is best case scenario, I think, for Jarla here. Since he does have the Shadow Word Pain in hand to be able to deal with this if he would like to. I think actually a value trade might be in order here.
Yeah, I think both players are starting to slowly edge into the danger zone of actually just not having that many resources. Jarla much more than Thijs, of course, because Plagiarize +1 Thief. But it's funny that Plagiarize for Thijs as resources is kind of not as good because Jarla doesn't have resources, right? Jarla's not going to chuck out any big turns anytime soon. But the second 1 Thief definitely helps with that for Thijs.
Yeah, and Jarla did just end up killing the 2-1 straight up. It is still the best Shadow Step target on the board there, which I guess is a pretty big consideration. Obviously, if you take the value trade, the Rogue can just mop it up with Dagger or using the other 1-1, and you're not protecting your Kaj quite as heavily if you don't take the maximum power off board. There's arguments both ways.
Yeah. His pickup so from Thijs, pretty solid. Arcane Intellect just helped draw through the deck, which is where I've seen this deck fall over the most, honestly, is just when you have these turns and draws where you aren't getting to draw as much of your deck as possible. Therefore, you can't, say, run into Secret Passage to draw more of your deck and so on.
Right.
But Arcane Intellect, and even, honestly, this Primordial Studies can just open up a lot of doors here.
Choose soon.
Even if it's just an Omu proc right now.
That's true. Primordial Studies does really suck in Rogue, though. When you remove the mage spell damage minions from the equation, it's a much, much worse card.
That's true. I just always assume I'm going to get a Zero Explorer and be happy. So maybe I go with it a bit too optimistic.
Okay.
End up with the Rolling Fireball instead. Which is definitely one of those, well, worst case scenario button is available to Thijs now, where he can kill off some of these potential big threats from Priest. I think Jarla's always going to play Raise Dead this turn. I just wonder if he's working out whether he wants to Cabal Raise Dead.
Right.
Or whether he needs to save it. But I don't know what you can expect to save it for. He does have Wave of Apathy, but by the time, if Thijs makes a big quest in, or Edwin or whatever, that he might want to steal, is that just too late to have a guaranteed Cabal at that point? Is it better to just seize the board now?
Mm.
I don't know. I look at this turn here with Cabal Raised Dead, and it just seems like Jarla just wins board.
Does, so I would agree with that. His Raised Dead pool right now is okay. He has one Kaj in there. I think he has 2 Sethics in there at this point, and a Disciple of Galakron, if I remember rightly. He does also have an Evil Miscreant inside this Kaj, so Jarla might be thinking he can improve his Raised Dead pool by having another Kaj and an Evil Miscreant die before he plays it.
Yeah, and I guess he was playing into Plagiarize as well, so that would have, of course, made the turn a little bit worse, with Thijs able to respond in fashion, but
I think another factor even on top of all of that is that he'd be breaking up the Acolyte Wave of Apathy combo on top of that as well, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, potentially he can just steal a minion of any size here if he's able to isolate it, and you'd be breaking up that combo to steal a 1-1. Like, I think there's a lot of things going against you there.
Okay. Those aren't bad.
Wait, a Neophyte as well? Okay.
Yeah. And the Mind Flare on the card tut seems pretty powerful, honestly.
Blood be born again.
And now there's a game of Hearthstone.
Well, here we are. This one seems to be slipping away from Thijs quite quickly here, though. Priest gaining serious board dominance.
Our tombs.
There is Edwin, though. Not going to quite do it. Maybe Thijs has to have a slightly slower turn, because also with Omu and Edwin, you could get off a potentially pretty big turn on board.
You could. Does seem to incentivize drawing some cards here, though, but with the way your hand looks right now, if you draw cards, you're already committing, probably just falling further behind on this board.
I wonder if instead, what about Dirty Tricks with Rolling Fireball fits a little bit better and kind of draws cards?
Pick up the Hanar, though, rewarding holding onto the secret here, which is a big deal.
With this play, though, he is running the slight risk of him having a big turn on board next turn just won't matter. So he'll be so far behind.
Agreed. Thijs doing the little things right here. I think, would also argue he kept the right lackey of the two alive here, just in case he finds Shadow Step, Potion of Illusion, any number of things he can pick up over the coming turns. If this 1-1 were to survive on a whim and a miracle at this point.
The renew from the one maker, not too bad to keep the left side card healthy as well. Not the worst card to give over. I do believe there's Jarla's on a 50-50 now, right, for this secret, because he's already seen 1 Dirty Tricks and 1 Plagiarize, I believe.
That's correct, yep.
Your mind is not
And the ambush, of course, as well. So, yeah, he knows this is 50-50 Plagiarize or Dirty Tricks. It's the good news. Could extend himself a little bit there into a potential Plagiarize. But the payoff for his side of winning the 50-50 is huge, as you can see here. It's just a potentially game-ending turn.
It is, but now there's even more cards for Thijs. He does have a Blackjack Stunner that he can activate with this Plagiarize he's just drawn now. So he could just send this buffed card back to hand. Not have to worry about it, at least for the short term.
It's true.
Couldn't he also do this with Omu, though?
I was going to say, is this not an Omu turn?
Yeah, it looked like an Omu turn. He could have gone Omu into
I mean, it
Secret.
still is. It still is. This doesn't commit him to not Omu, because he's just spending all of his mana first, and then he's going to refresh it all at the end. Like, this is actually just the way to do it.
In time,
Yeah.
you too will
Looks like the one.
Yeah, the Vendetta allowed him to do it that way, right?
Yes. Yeah, crucially, that Lightwell was hanging on as the last card, discounting the Vendetta there at the end to make all of that possible. Very nice, huge board swing out of absolutely nowhere. I said this could have been a potentially game-ending turn, and I was right, Raven.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I bet Jarla wishes that that spell was the other 9-cost pre-spell right now.
Yep.
So he could just plague this away and probably win the game from that point. Does have Wave of Apathy to buy himself some time. Definitely still not the end of the world. Could like Kaj the Omu and set up for a big turn of his own.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that seems powerful.
It does. He could Grave Ruin the Omu to then set up for infinite mana. No.
Uh-huh. If he could just find some way to get about 160 health before that point, he might just have the time to do all that.
Wave of Apathy. That seems like a 160 health gain card to me.
Yeah.
Can Psyche split the Please?
Yeah.
I don't think it does too much right now.
Yeah, I like this. Psyche split the big guy. Disrupt the turn. Wave at the end. Try and use it to fight back on the following turn. I like this a lot. Shadow Step now is the draw for Thijs. Oh no.
Close.
Oh, the Neophyte. Oh, it's so messy. So you can like Secret first, and then Secret Passage, and then you'll have 4 mana remaining. Your Shadow Steps will cost 1, so it does still all fit. You get the Shadow
And the
Step for
minion
the
costs
Blackjack
1
Stunner.
as well, yeah.
Oh, the minion costs 0 because you Shadow Stepped it.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Even if you... I'm being silly.
Okay. Alright, sure.
I mean...
I mean, you play your cards, right? Really? Backstab instead of questing.
I like it. Like, he doesn't need to do anything else. He doesn't need any more minions, right?
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. It's a fair point.
If he bounces this cleave, like he has a massive board anyway.
Okay. He's gonna look for more value off the one
Yeah,
pick
I
with
like
the
it.
other step. Yeah, okay. Seems fine.
choose soon.
Yeah. That was not the juice.
Just take the secret to mess with him. Like,
Maybe. His natural hand right now has a Jandis in it, so he's kind of okay for more development if he does need it, if this board gets dealt with.
I've got a few tricky choices, but the secret passage paying off in spades there, honestly.
Yeah.
That's like absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Oh!
Oh! Ugliest Soul Mirror ever.
It's just rubbish, isn't it?
Yep.
It's Soul Mirror into self-lethal, more or less.
What
Yeah, still 20
is
coming back the other way, but
Uh,
at least he has a board. Like, Thijs can't just go face for 20 because then the remainder of his minions get traded down. Like, I mean, maybe he can. Maybe he can just go face for 20, play Jandis on the next turn, but not really seeing anything better. Unless you want to take the gamble on your opponent's hand that is Lightwell, an unknown card, and a random mage spell. Like that, you
Yeah.
actually know that as Jarla, right? You have a lot of information on what this hand is.
and it's not as if he can play it if it's boxed, right? Which is the card he would kind of want it to be, but obviously wouldn't
Right.
want. Just gonna res.
Cartoots? He does get the Cartoot, okay.
Secret Passage again. Is there any key cards that Thijs actually would want to, say, be game-winning from Secret Passage? Because he isn't running those Eviscerates, because that's why he's still running the Vendettas. Normally those are the swaps. You either play one or the other.
Yeah, so right now, his remaining deck is the 2 Questings that we haven't seen played. He does have a Miscreant remaining. Outside of that, 1 Cult Neophyte, 1 Ferrocat, 1 Blackjack Stunner, 1 Backstab. It's a pretty low-value last 7 cards, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, sorry. Just like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times with this Jandis, wasn't it? It is an 8/8. It's a horrible one, though, and then it's just a 0/3 egg.
I'm just focusing on the it's an 8/8 part, and not thinking about it beyond that point.
Choose soon.
Wait. Okay, sure. I was wondering how much he was bothered about the Sethic there. Thought he might have just gone for the backstab double small minion plus dagger trade. Push everything else face. But I guess the Sethic could just get him into some dodgy situations. And the Neophyte from Thijs might actually just put a lock on a good chunk of this turn from Jarla.
It doesn't, though. Does it? Like, the 3/2 being left up is the kicker here. Jarla has squeezed his way out of this one. Because now the Soul Mirror lineup is just so perfect for him.
And with Apotheosis, this egg could lead Jarla to victory. If it never gets hit.
There's the questing, though. One of the last 2 remaining threats now for Thijs.
Give me a quest.
His deck again at this point. Stunner, Miscreant, Questing Adventurer.
Not gonna lie, Sol. All I'm sat here doing is thinking about what if Mass Resurrect brings back Omu? Could Thijs do anything with...
Yo! Okay. Now we're thinking with
funny.
portals, Raven. I like
yeah,
it.
Exactly.
Again, I mean, you know the hand sucks, right? 1 Reborn minion plus Mass Resurrection.
What about, like, Mind Flayer, Wave of Apathy, Cleave?
What?
Like, that seems pretty solid considering you have Apotheosis to back it up with.
Does. I agree. This Mage Secret is unknown again, though, so you have to potentially think about playing around Counterspell, playing around Mirror Entity, playing around Netherwind Portal. These are all things you have to think about.
You can take my approach and not think. Just play some cards.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
The heal and not Wave of Apathy, okay. Of course, this does kind of like buff 2 of the minions and allows the egg to attack, which is a little bit weird. And I guess the assumption is the question's not going to get that much bigger, and we didn't see the Omu. Disappointed.
I actually do like this, though, right? Because, again, I started off the turn talking about what the hand was in context of Mindrender plays, but Jarla there is thinking about what the hand is in terms of the Questing Adventurer. He knows it's Mass Resurrection and 1 Reborn minion, so he knows that there's probably only 1 card being played that turn, the vast majority of the time. This is the exclusive situation where Thijs could play both of those cards in his hand where it's Mermy. So Jarla just says, I don't need to wave here. I can just tank this questing damage and just be absolutely fine with it. But I do also know that one of my opponent's cards is Mass Resurrection, so this Wave of Apathy can actually get better later on because the board could potentially get bigger.
Yeah, I just wondered whether it was worth then the sacrifice, or potential sacrifice, of the Van Cleef. I guess that's the decision, because if that's the case, then he knows Van Cleef can get traded into, right? Value traded.
Imagine trading, Raven. There's that wave value. Yeah.
Not too bad. Would have preferred a spell he could have played this turn, of course, to keep the chain going, but Initiation is just a decent removal tool and will gain him something to do next turn, so could have been worse, could have been a lot better.
50-50 on the draw this turn from Thijs. Miscreant Blackjack Stunner. He still has the Flame Ward. Jarla here could potentially just deliberately deactivate the secret. He's tested for a lot of them.
Him, though. Oh.
Yeah, he's tested for a lot of them, but he doesn't know whether it's Barrier, Vaporize, Flame Ward. He does know it was a chosen secret of a Wand Thief, though. So the chances that it was Ice Barrier or Vaporize seem pretty colossally unlikely.
And also, on the chance that it's Flame Ward, I think he just loses the game. So I do like this playing a little bit slower here and taking the
Almost
trades.
out of cards.
Yeah. It is the Stunner, though. It's a big deal.
Give me a quest.
Also, who's the worst of times now, Raven? This Chromatic Egg's popping. It's just getting in there. It's just a 1-3.
Yeah. It is funny when 0-tap minions actually get buffed. It's like whenever you see a Doomsayer get to attack, you've just got to be happy.
Yeah. There was a momentary pause there, as if Thijs was actually expecting something to happen when he traded in the egg. That's not how that works, I'm afraid.
The real question is, does Jarla have the time to initiation the Jandis and then replay it?
I choose soon.
Wait, what? How would he even replay it?
That's what I'm saying. Does he have the time, as in 2 turns worth of time?
It summons it. It doesn't. You don't get it in your hand.
Oh, does it? Oh, I'm being silly. Yeah, it summons it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, he could just go for the Spellkin now. Maybe he has to use it to get this the Sethic working.
You just kill the questing, right? You know it's the last threat. Unless Miscreant creates some miracles, you just shoot the questing, get a questing, play some cards. Seems good to me. Circle of Healing is actually absurd here.
Actually,
oh my
it's actually
goodness,
pretty
that's
good.
so good. That looks like the final nail in the coffin to me, because this last card is Evil Miscreant, and just focus on the details of that sentence. This last card is Evil Miscreant, so it cannot present any value to Thijs at this point whatsoever, because it is unable to be comboed. Jarla finds himself a way out of that one. I think I called that game over on both sides at some point during that game, and then it flipped all the way back to Jarla. Thijs was able to have a ridiculously explosive turn with Forest Warden Omu, spending all of his mana, Vendetta refreshing for 0, then rolling Fireball Edwin Van Cleef. Jarla had to scramble for 2 turns to find a way out of this, but at the end, it was just a single 3-2 being stuck to the board. That's all he needed to be able to make the Soul Mirror trades favorable for him. And then from that point, Thijs was just out of resources.
Yeah, and it was everything around that turn, right? Because not even just the fact that the 3-2 was alive to kill the Cleave, but that he used the Omu to trade when he could have used the Lackeys and a dagger instead. And then that meant that the Omu also died because it was under it. It was a 5-6 at the time, I think I recall. So that means the Omu also died. The Van Cleef also died to Soul Mirror. And that was probably just the turn, right? If Soul Mirror wasn't as good, like you said, the backswing on that is just going to be too strong. So it did all really come down to just Jarla being able to pull off that solid Soul Mirror turn. And it does mean the series is equal at 1-1. And honestly, I think this is just going to be one of those matches, Sol, where every game is just going to be nutty, because the first 2 games, there's been so many tough and difficult decisions, along with so much card generation to juggle on both sides of the board, that I don't even see it stopping anytime soon.
We do have the potential of the 2 Vanquish decks up to this point, the Rogue and the Mage now queuing into each other, which that matchup is potentially the king of lunacy. Absolutely nonsense things can happen in that matchup when they come up against each other. So looking forward to that potential. But outside of that, it's the Druid on both sides, which will likely be a bit more straightforward than the games we've been seeing so far.
Yeah, I do believe we are going to go into Druid for Thijs versus Mage for Jarla here. So Thijs is going to be bringing, just taking a quick look. He's got the Kael'thas Druid with that Omu as well. So really going all in. I know you were speaking last week, or yesterday, maybe yesterday. It all blurs together. About does Omu replace Kael'thas in the list that choose to use it? Well, it looks to be, at least for now, no. People are bringing both of them in the same list for the true ultimate power spikes.
Yeah, recent change to Forest Warden Omu, where it now takes temporary mana crystals from cards like Innovate and actually refills them as if they were, permanent mana crystals that you got from Wild Growth or Overgrowth or something along that. So since that patch came out, which I think people didn't catch on to immediately, it was kind of like halfway through the Masters tour where I saw this like propagating around Twitter, where people were like, "Wait, what? It works like that now? What?" So then since that moment, we've been seeing a lot more Omu come into variations of Druid that aren't just exclusively Malagos Druid.
Here we look at the opening mulligans already. The ever question of Bloom and when and how and why to keep it. But Overgrowth and Overflow is a plan, and Bloom does potentially help with that if he wants to actually bloom out the Overgrowth first and then go a little bit of a weird way around it. The option is there.
Wow, that Nature Studies draw made this hand infinitely more complicated than it needed to be.
Yep. Would you have kept the Bloom in that situation, Softball? Because I think I would have thrown it.
I might have kept the 2 in the middle and thrown the Overflow.
Huh, okay. Going for a Guardian Animals?
Yeah, just going for GA or minions to play. Especially in a 2... Yeah, I was going to say, especially in a 2 Overflow deck, which not everyone is playing. I think keeping 1 Overflow when you only have 1 can be pretty important. But with the way the curve panned out, I said Nature Studies made the curve more complicated, but I do like the way that Thijs broke it down here. I think you saw him going to his Mind Palace temporarily as he closed his eyes and just pictured the curve played out a couple of different ways. And I think this is the best way to do it, because now he carries this discount into his next turn, which will be his 6 mana turn, and he's able to just pop off with one of these overflows. So I really like the way this is done.
Meanwhile, on Jarla's side, he is running that Antonidas, just as a little reminder we spoke about way back when, at the start of this series, Sottle, back in the olden days at this point, where not sure if it pays off that often versus Druid. Particularly, it feels like maybe even just an on-curve type of play, because I think the games are normally decided by the point Antonidas could be super impactful.
Yeah, I would agree with that generally.
Oh, okay, back-to-back Anubisath. Why not?
Okay. But let's just think about this for a moment. Yep, exactly. Thank you, Thijs. Because he has 7 mana next turn. He has Nature Studies, an Innovate, and a Survival of the Fittest in his hand. So he has the opportunity to play those Anubisath defenders very soon as buffed minions.
But I want my minions now!
It's a totally valid argument. As I said, I just wanted to stop and think about it for a moment, and Thijs did just that.
I think the problem is it was just a little bit too far away, wasn't it?
It's one turn too slow, yeah.
Yes, yeah, 100%. If he could do it next turn 100% of the time, then great, fantastic. But just passing and then potentially passing the turn after as well feels like you're just asking for the mage to take too much control of the game.
Yeah, agree.
And look how awkward this has made this turn now for Jarla. He was probably banking on Coin Jandis with a relatively slow turn there.
Oh, indeed. Shambhala coin +1. Looks to be what Jarla is finding himself on at the moment.
Or is it just me? Works against me.
Yikes. It's like a Stewart.
I actually wondered for a second if it was just a Violet Warden. Just because of the early minion presence here from Thijs. Maybe just an extra big beefy taunt would have helped a little bit. Only because against Druid, a 4-mana 4/4, even if he keeps that spell damage reduction, just feels very weak, even if it's discovering the spell.
What if...
Lightning Bloom gives him access to 10 mana this turn as the draw. He can go Bloom, Innovate, Fish with Nature Studies for something, quote, better to do this turn, because there is the Shambhala problem that needs solving, obviously. Maybe the Shambhala is too much of a problem. Maybe these are just the best mirror images you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, and I'm actually staring at I'm making more of an argument for that, because he has, if he does all of this the turn after, he can actually innovate out the broom, right?
But what, like, now that I've stopped looking at the survival line and looked at the deal with the Shambhala line, like, what is that line? Crystal Power, Hero Power, or Broom or something? Like, that doesn't sound like a Hearthstone turn.
Could have just overflowed and been like, meh. See what I drop? would have been a lot better if the minions he was trading into weren't 0/2s, if he actually, took some value from the heal.
That's what I mean, like, those are just the best mirror images you have ever seen in your life at that point. Protected his face from 14 and protected his Shambhala to actually be able to pop off again this turn. Pretty insane.
Jarla pushed to at least a certain level of desperation here, going for a relatively small and probably underwhelming evocation. What if he just goes Mirror Entity now? He knows all the minions are buffed.
It's true.
Is anything that much better? Cramp Session, like, I don't think really does too much. It's also off curve. I think you need something immediate, and that is that Mirror Entity.
Yeah, I guess. So your opponent screws up and gives you like a giant Omu or Kael'thas or something in the next couple of turns. It's a really dire looking situation, though.
It is. It is. I think it's always going to be if you see a survival of the fittest that early. But I do think this, even just this broom, honestly, like if the broom gets played, it does get a value trade into the 2/5. But he does just gain a 5/5 for that turn, which isn't too terrible versus the options he had.
Thijs working his way through the possibilities, decided he would rather lose Crystal Power to Counterspell. Rips the Nature Studies, has also tested for Spellbender at this point, of course. These are some pretty low value options, though.
So you're gonna just... Huh. What would you have thought of actually Wild Growth as the pick? Play it and then play the broom?
Why?
Just get to 10 mana for your Overflow next turn.
For your
And the other
Overflow next turn? So you can play Overflow and still do stuff afterwards, or what?
Yeah, and just have more options, right?
Okay.
And also, it's just like, I don't know, I think that the Claw, like, it did something, but was it better than having 10 mana next turn? I don't know.
Well, Claw played around Mirror Entity, right? Which I think is something Thijs was thinking about. Because he saw he played the broom, the Mirror Entity went off, and then he had the exact damage breakpoint in hand to be able to deal with it. So I think that might have been a deliberate setup on Thijs' part. Having already ruled out the spell-based secrets and knowing that it was a pretty exact choice from Jarla to play that secret with his remaining mana, right? Garbaggio.
Yeah. This is like this year summed up in a Jandis, isn't it?
Wow. People come here to escape from 2020, Rave. Let's not remind them of it.
It's the Hearthstone Grandmasters! Yeah. It's like, can't tell much. Yeah, he's gonna book him this spot in Worlds soon.
World's current year. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Overflow still is going to be pretty good here. Just getting that not only the card draw, which is of course fantastic, but the re-heal on these already huge minions. Oh, what more do you want? Ty's just working out whether he wants to just hero power this turn first.
I do like these decisions, though. He doesn't really care about the size of the minions on board. He just focuses there on removing spell damage over stats in play, which I think is pretty reasonable in that position. Knows he gets to hero power down the Jandis here. He does leave up a Conjurer's Calling target, but like his minions are still just so huge in comparison to what a Conjurer's Calling would do.
Very small, but what do you think the value was of not hero powering first that turn? He did miss out on some heal.
He did. That's true.
I just wonder what he could have drawn, to actually alter the turn.
Exactly. I'm not entirely sure what he would have spent 2 mana on, but I mean, honestly, even if I couldn't think of a specific reason, I would probably still do it that way, because what's 1 health at this point, right? Over forgetting some play that you could have made with your 2 remaining mana.
Yeah, this is not me digging at Thijs at all. I'm more wondering if there was anything that you could have drawn that would have been like, oh, this 2 mana is insane now. That kind of approach.
Second Broom to pressure more, I don't know, full clear.
Sure.
Fine. That's some stuff.
Works against me.
Again, is Jarla in half desperation mode and just has to go Netherwing Portal? Is just more stuff to do on board or to have on board? Because rolling Fireball, you've got to be a little bit worried that it doesn't actually kill much stuff anymore.
No.
All in due time.
I don't know if it was just the way that the animations trickled through there at the end, but it looks like Jarla just gave up on this game towards the end of that turn.
I did sit there for just a second and be like, Yeah, massive Ysera hits the board now. Just a casual 8-16, why not?
Yeah. Crystal powered now with the dragons in the deck. I'm sure there's no way we're committing the second Broom, because now the value of it goes through the roof. I mean, even with freaking Lake Thresher in hand already, the value of your Broom is through the roof. Well, that's the card. That is certainly the card.
Oh, it says explode!
I'll be impressed if even Evocation here can create a board swing that counteracts what he's facing down on the other side. Devolving Missiles is an enormous part of it, though.
Wait a minute.
Less so now.
Warriors of the frozen wastes, rise up!
I mean, the Solarian could help. Oh, he's gonna go.
Who's ready for a little show?
Mizaki try and protect it, I guess.
Is that mirror image?
Yeah, puts it absolute full far left, as far away from those mirror image taunts as he can possibly get it.
Has to throw this Brain Freeze out, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's just...
Okay, well, there is a Broom.
It's still not good enough, is it?
Oh. I believe there are still beasts in the deck for this Guardian Animals too, so there are just enough attacks regardless at this point. One Rush Minion would have been enough because he could just hero power plus the Wisp to kill one, Rush Minion 2 to kill the other one, and then trade.
Thijs has drawn so much of his deck in the right order this game that he actually still has enough value left for a second Guardian Animals at this point.
Wow.
He still has another Lake Thresher and Twilight Runner. He does play a lot of beasts, obviously, because he's playing the super, minion buff variation. He's playing double Survival of the Fittest, Kael'thas Omu. So that supports having a lot of beasts in your deck as well, especially when you can rush them out with your 2 Brooms. But he had so much value left at the end, still, from those 2 remaining Guardian Animals, because he actually only had like 7 or 8 legit cards left in his deck because he hadn't drawn any of his Dream Portals at that point anyway. So to have 5 of those cards be 4 beasts and the extra copy of Guardian Animals as well, like, it's very rare that you get Guardian Animals value that late in the game, but he didn't even need it, to be perfectly honest. He had that board covered with the Broom and the Lake Thresher that he had in hand already.
Yeah, I think you can tell how just smooth the game plan was there, or the way it played out from Thijs, is because he had 2 overflows in hand. He kept one and drew the other very early, and it was absolutely fine. There was no hand issues. He didn't have to throw cards away left, right, and center to make room. He played them both, and it was fine. It was good, even, not just fine. And normally those games where you have 2 overflows that early, you do struggle a little bit because not only do you need the mana, you need the time, you need the hand space, everything needs to go right. But really, it did just look pretty good there from Thijs. And that's the value of this version of Druid. It is my preferred style of Druid at the moment, at least. I just like the sheer power spike you get if you get a survival of the fittest off and you still have those minions to play out. It is ludicrous, and there just aren't that many decks in the game that can even bounce back from that as long as you can land it even relatively safely. Those Anubisaths, they put in a lot of work there for Thijs.
They did, and I do want to focus and call back to that decision where Thijs just chose to disrespect the Shenvala and just go in with the survival of the fittest the turn after, because I think that's a pretty key point in the matchup where he just said, you know what, as you were saying, if Druid just does its thing, it's a very disrespectful deck, right? It doesn't really pay too much attention to what the opponent wants to do. It just does its own thing and says this is more powerful than what you're able to do, which is kind of the philosophy behind that play from Thijs as well. I think if there was a Sorcerer's Apprentice in hand, there was a good chance you saw that on the previous turn alongside the Shenvala anyway, because it was Shenvala, coin, 1 mana spell, 1 mana spell. Sorcerer's Apprentice would have fit in there anyway, with potentially some more stuff alongside that. So I think with that read, combined with kind of how pathetic in comparison the remove Shenvala turn was, I think Thijs was absolutely right to just say, nah, you know what, forget about it. Have your 5/5s if you have them. I'm just playing my 10 mana spell and winning the game.
Yeah, and that's the potential that Broom actually unlocks in the deck, because even if you lose board by playing a Survival of the Fittest, well, 1 Thresher plus a Broom, almost any board in the game is just gone at that point, and your minions are still tough to deal with. So really, it's just the power of that deck. You do have the downsides, of course, where if you don't get to Survival of the Fittest at really any reasonable point in the game, the deck is significantly weaker. You don't have those Mount Cell swings, you don't have the Malygos burst potential or extra removal. So there are weaknesses, but when it works, it is insane. But we are moving on very quickly to our game number 4, and just a reminder, as you can see on screen there, Thijs 0-2 down in round robin so far, looking to be on a good first few steps to turn that score around actually, and maybe stave off some relegation matches this season.
Yeah, 0-2 down, but 2-1 up in this series against Jarla, who has been very much one of the form players over the last 6 months to a year, I'd say, of competitive Hearthstone. Thijs here throws away the secret passage, looking for ways to occupy and compete for board early, which I do like in this matchup. You can win from behind if your opponent snowballs out and just gets a wide board of annoying small minions from either side, but I think it is significantly more difficult. I think the fight for early board control does dictate a lot of who is going to struggle more in each individual iteration of the matchup.
Also, here, Jarla just going for that early magic trick, and I do wonder whether he's going to go for the Tome of Intellect, just to be able to have it with 1 Thief next turn, or if he's okay just holding on for that and planning to just go 1 Maker instead.
It takes Icicle here just to bank some card draw alongside the Ray of Frost, which does make some sense to me here. As you said, he can just go 1 Maker on turn 2 anyway.
Oh, so
well...
Yep.
So here we are, Raven.
I just want you to imagine, Saul, if there was a Blackjack Stunner in hand right now. Would it be one of the best hands we've ever seen?
Oh, up to no good. Me too.
I do like this, though.
Yeah, Lackey Ethereal's not so bad either. And what this is really showing is the use of the coin is not an issue even with questing, because double Shadow Step makes up for all problems combined with Lackeys. That is actually just better than having the coin at this point. So Thijs just, again, I agree, making a very solid play, setting up this questing to be potentially game-winning here.
I do love Jarla trying to be as annoying as possible with the Shenvala here, though. Unlikely that a combination of lackeys straight up answers this. You know, just 1 Kobold lackey with the dagger, for example, is only 4. So it would need to be a combination of damage source from both lackeys, or Thijs is going to have to break up some of his Shadow Step resources here, because he can't really afford to go in on this questing adventure yet. That looked like his turn 4 setup. As of right now, he's not finding the answer.
No, he does have these one thief to pair with this prep as well, so he could potentially get something powerful here. Fireball does technically deal with Shambhala, just not yet. And the problem is, if the plan is for next turn, then that's just one more turn away from the
He's
quest.
got to do it right. He's just got a lackey step lackey. Cannot just leave it there. There could, like, if you leave that there could be 3 5/5s on the board next turn. It doesn't matter how big you make your questing. You just got to deal with it. Unfortunate. Very good play from Jarla, though. Disruption play on the side. Felt like, I imagine he probably felt like he was sacrificing his Shambhala there. Like it was a play where this dies, but if it doesn't, there is upside. But he knows the threat it represents to Thijs. So I think it was primarily a disruption play and a very, very good one from Jarla.
All in due time.
That's only one step of many, I think, required to win this game, even just looking at the hands here, because Jarla, he has okay cards, but not great. I think this one thief needs to dig him out of some trouble right now.
And I think this Antonidas is already looking potentially quite ugly in this matchup, right? Just coming into the hand already and clogging it up. But yeah, it is just step one. But it is also just step one for Thijs, who does still have the second one preserved in hand to buff up this questing adventure on the following turn still alongside that prep.
Yeah, and look at the options, right? Like, what does Jarla do and where does the priority lie? Because the second Shadow Step has a almost a buffet of targets right now on board, right? Like, whatever Thijs wants, he can have with this Shadow Step if none of these minions are cleaned up. We're going to see Jarla's... how confident Jarla's feeling about his hand right now. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, Arcane Explosion, believe in the spell damage. There's a ton of spell damage in your deck that you can pick up that makes this incredibly effective in the matchup.
Also, Yogg-Box, believe in the Yogg-Box. There are a ton of spells it could cast in this match.
Shut up, Raven. That sounds interesting. I presume it's Step Miscreant?
I guess. Yeah, okay.
Were you thinking something different?
Well, it's the options of what does prep actually change enough of either ethereal or one thief to make it worthwhile.
Well,
I guess if he's always going to prep the plagiarize, then
yeah. So sorry, I was like already earmarking prep plagiarize as essential this turn because specifically in this matchup, when one player starts to go in, the other player has to go in response, right? Or else they lose a lot of the time. So the reason I always want to prep plagiarize in this position is that your opponent will generally have to Sorcerer's Apprentice and push back against you, right? Because you've initiated like the bomb chain of the matchup. So I think plagiarize is pretty core to come down this turn.
Yep, that's reasonable. I was just sat thinking, is there anything that you can get that like makes it worth, the payoff for keeping prep there? But I do agree this is potentially very, very strong. It's not only a strong first turn, but a strong response as well.
Oh!
You just wait, right?
I mean, that's the question. Does the situation improve or not for you next turn? Can't even ping this turn?
So here's my thing, right? You know 2 of the cards are lackeys, and you know 1 is a mage spell, which means you're getting more 1/1s on board pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Which then means the Arcane Explosion cleans most of them up, and then the Devolving Missiles will come down. Or...
is this good or bad? Who's getting baited here, Raven? I don't even know!
Okay, so honestly, if I'm Thijs, there's never a reason that 2 is worse than 1 here. Because even just this turn kind of plays around Evolving Missiles anyway, because he can go so wide. Part of going wide is the Adventurer. So yeah, I like this. I think this is great.
As far apart as humanly possible as well. Love it.
Well,
4 minions left alive right now. Are you magic tricking this turn? To find ways to clear the other minions? If so, you should probably do that first, right?
2, 3... I guess, because Ray of Frost can still be played. That's all I was bothered about right now. If Ray of Frost can be played as a backup, if the devolving missiles miss.
Hit both the emergency buttons, the evocation and the Frost Nova. Chose to go with the consistent one.
I like
He
this because there's no plan for the Nova, right? If you go Nova.
Oh!
Oh my! Oh my!
The absolute nightmare! The horror, Raven! The Urzel horror!
Ray of Frost 1, he does get the 6/6, but...
Nothing! Okay. Complete no-sell. I see how it is.
Yeah. Learn from the best.
Yep. Yep.
It's going to be the Ray response now, and that's the worst part, right? Jarla knows that Thijs has some good cards this turn to buff these questions.
Yep.
Oh, even prep now. Sol's favorite turn is potentially optional for next turn.
Yeah, Thijs very much in command. Jarla looking like a lost soul right now.
And I don't blame him, right? This evocation needs to be insane. But again, I do like the fact he didn't go for the Nova because it did just delay the inevitable at that point. Plays he has made actually gave him chance to actually win this game.
I agree. Because he commits to it before he plays the devolving missiles, right? So his win condition is that the devolving missiles plan worked, and then he doesn't necessarily need a Frost Nova. He needs an evocation to get the Giants cheap.
Now, quick tally up here to see whether the Vape ever gets anywhere. He does have Mirror Image, does have Brain Freeze to maybe reduce this board down enough that one question hits face into the Vaporize. Already looks like he's off that plan. Wants to just go for Double Giant instead. And a glance there. Thijs is not running Flick, just so we're all knowledgeable, because we have seen some players just mess around with Flick as a tech card now and again. Just make these Giants safer to just play out on board.
Ray's huge. Okay, counter swing is here. The problem is not solved, but it is delayed, and he also has added 16 power to the board that can help him deal with the problem on the following turns. At least one of these questings can be contested now next turn. Oh, but the stunner's been picked up, but there's no secret in hand.
And also, there's no Shadow Step, right? Thijs has used them both.
It's very true. It's very true. So you can't
So
even play it first and then passage for secret Shadow Step. Yeah. Just got to go through him the hard way.
Don't think there's a good way for him to activate Vendetta as well, right? If he gets Vendettas here, they are just going to be 4 mana.
He's nodding. He's nodding. He hits secret second stunner. That's insane. Giant back to the hand. You want to go tricks instead of ambush? You want to go ambush? I feel like you want to go ambush.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Really?
You'll just draw it next turn or something, I don't know. But most importantly, this is just setting up so much damage. I think he feels he might not need it.
Okay. I guess the only win condition for Giant coming back down would be alongside like a Frost Nova anyway, right? So it would be Giant, prop the ambush, Frost Nova. Yeah, that's fine. It's fine. Yeah, Datrix is fine.
This just gets him closer to good cards, I think, because you are expecting spells 100% of the time.
Yeah, agreed.
Speaking of spells... Oh, we're going to see just more godlike mirror images at that point. Jarla probably won't pick Arcane Explosion out of principle after seeing the last one kind of failing.
Hey, the Arcane Explosion did its job, okay? It was the Devolving Missiles that let him down.
Yeah, well, I don't see Devolving Missiles here, so I'm going to blame the other one.
Let's not misassign blame, okay? That's how people get ejected.
I'm just trying to get into Jarla's mindset right now. What is he thinking?
Right.
Good look at the pattern that led him to this point. Oh, another Ray of Frost!
Oh
Insane! I thought it said twin spell. I've seen at least 10 of these this game, not 2.
I never lie.
This time, Thijs has the answers locked, loaded, and ready to go, though. Second stunner in hand. Hanar Train activate. Jarla, I think this is your last hurrah for this series, at least. It's looking very much like Thijs might be getting his first win on the board for the round-robin season.
Yeah, much needed win. And the fact that this Hanar turn just basically makes Jarla have to deal with not only the mess on board, but the mess off board as well, right? Because there's just like, you know, what's this secret? How much is this going to wreck me? How can I even play this giant again and hope it sticks? There is a Ray of Frost, but Jarla needs another 10 to make this game continue here. Oh, okay, that's just funny. Questions just never get to attack. So much wasted potential.
We're just setting world records for biggest questings in a game of competitive Hearthstone. Don't worry about it, we'll get there. So Rogue Paladin in play from Jarla's point of view. Never Surrender is obviously the big fear. On the Paladin secret, Rogue secrets he's been having to navigate the entire game. Antonidas. An Antonidas Ray of Frost kind of turn here is a disaster into Plagiarize, obviously, but I think Jarla might just have to shut his eyes and pretend that doesn't exist.
No true surprise where these Ray of Frosts are going here, but I don't know, something magical does have to happen.
And now he knows, but he's committed. He has to play the second Ray of Frost to be alive here. Plays the Giant anyway.
At least by playing the Giant, there's 2 good targets for this this ambusher to deal with.
Yeah. There's also a Giant in your opponent's hand, though, but that's probably not the most relevant part of the equation. It turns out that Secret Rogue is also pretty good at discounting mana Giants.
I'd be a little bit surprised if he trades the Giant, right?
Well, the Antonidas has less health, so why wouldn't you do it that way?
I just didn't know if it's going to just leave the Antonidas up and play pressure play.
Oh, okay.
You know, like just trade away the Giant because it's the I think it's the better Conjurer's target. Kill the 1/2. Oh yes, the 30th Ray of Frost played this game.
I know. It's kind of ludicrous. I like this though, like it really doesn't cost him that much to kill all the threats.
Yeah,
this is kind of where my head was at the start of the turn. It's like you now get a 3rd game-ending threat in play with the Mana Giant on top of all of this. Like, yeah, that's right, just kill everything. He can't Ray of Frost forever. Despite what it might look like, Raven, he actually can't Ray of Frost forever.
Ray of Frost into Mana Cyclone, let's go.
Yeah.
Does mean his board's a little bit smaller. So if he generates a Devolving Missiles, it might actually hit a quest in this turn.
That's a good point. Pressure Play eats the 1 Thief before it gets a chance to do anything, so Jarla now doesn't have information on the Noble Sacrifice. Other secret remaining is Ambush.
Yeah, potentially a little bit. Look at like, continue, sir. I will wait.
Yes! Get him, Thijs! People think Thijs is a nice guy. He's not. He's a stone-cold killer.
It's all a facade. It's nearly a Ray of Frost.
You're petty. On no challenge.
No, no draw. Well done, Interloper. That is going to be game. That is going to be series and a quick ending to a pretty crazy series overall with Thijs being the victor, and most importantly for him, getting a win on the board, because at this point in the round robin, there is a very large difference between 0, 3, and 1 and 2. That is much more respectable and gives you much more of a chance to actually maybe join the middle of the pack in Division A, which is actually where you are okay being.
Yeah, I think I've spoken to multiple players this season who have said that after they qualify for Division A, they feel like, 1-on-1 weeks are the target, because as long as you can do that, you're going to have a fairly mid-table finish in Division A, and then you're going to have a playoff spot, and then you can readjust. You can, just shoot for playoffs. You can still get that world spot, So going 1-on-1 every week is reasonable. Thijs is not too far behind that. He just has to pick up a 2-0 week to compensate for his 0-2 week, and then he is absolutely back in business as well and pushing along that curve. But that's a huge win for him, because, now being in a 1-2 position versus a 3-0 position is night and day. But outside of the context of the divisional standings, just that as a Hearthstone series was just pretty great to watch. I think entertaining games throughout from both sides, and Thijs ending it out there in very fitting fashion with yes, proceed, sir. You may continue.
Yeah, it's pretty fun series to kick off the day. A long one, but one with a lot of not only crazy moments, but tough decisions from these players. Like, you might